Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Rage video, where tonight, ladies and gentlemen, just previously I did a song called The Fear by Lily Allen, which is a song that came out in late 2008, and I made basically, I turned that song into basically something of an essay. And I must admit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that I thoroughly enjoyed what I did with it, because I felt there was a lot of pride in what Lily said, and I think there was definitely a lot to be said about the world at large and the sheer falseness of the life of glitz and glamour. And something that my sister has actually wanted me to do for a while now is actually take a look at more modern stuff, because somehow she's my boss now, apparently. But with that being said, I think she does raise quite a good point, because I sort of do want to check out like modern stuff, I suppose, but the problem is that where do you start? Because the world is so vast and so varied that where exactly do you begin? So that's why I just went on to trending on YouTube, went into music, and I just picked something at random. In case you're wondering, no, I do not know anything at all about Little Simz, apart from the fact that she is a British rapper with Nigerian heritage, and this is apparently something that came out on her fourth album, which she's dropping later in September. I can't tell if this is meant to be like hip-hop or rap, but I know that dropping an album is a phrase I've heard go about. But with all that being said and done, the title kind of like threw me right there, Introvert, because, well, there's definitely a lot I could say about that. And without really, I'll tell you how I sort of like want to do this. I kind of like just want to play the whole song and then just talk afterwards. I don't want to make this video into what I did with The Fear, but if I do, if anything really, really catches my eye, then that will be that then. So anyway, if you guys want to check out the original... sorry about that. If you guys want to check out the original video for yourselves, links will all be in the description down below. Let's begin. Introvert in 3, 2, 1, and... Alright.
Blood of a young Messiah. I see sinners in a church, I see sinners in a church. Sometimes I might be introvert, there's a war inside. I hear battle cries, mothers burying sons, young boys playing with guns. The devil's a liar, fulfill your wildest desires. Now I don't want to be the one to doctor this, but if you can't feel pain, then you can't feel the opposite. The fight between the yin and yang's a fight you'll never win. I study humans, that makes me an anthropologist. I'm not into politics, but I know it's dark times. Parts of the world still living in apartheid. But if I don't take this winner's flight, that's career suicide.
Okay, right there. Where was it? I'm not into politics. Parts of this world still living in apartheid. Well, that is like... When you think about it for like 1 second, ladies and gentlemen, is that... And I remember like saying this yesterday, and I think it just goes to show that even in the last 12 months, that believing that there's not racial prejudice, believing that racism just disappeared as a result of, civil rights movements and apartheid being lifted. People have a very hard time in remembering is that does not stop hate crimes. I think when you realize that is that it does not abolish groups like Ku Klux Klan forever. It doesn't remove people who are prejudiced. I don't really want to necessarily say the term woke, but when you think about it, even for like 1 second, that is really all you need to know, is that it still happens, and it's happening at this very moment. And I think what she's trying to get from calling herself introvert. Let me. I'm just going to do this quickly. The kingdom's on fire. The blood of a young Messiah. I see sinners in the church. I see sinners in the church. Sometimes I might be introvert. There's a war inside. It's sort of like, am I gonna? Okay, let me try and figure this out for 1 second. I apologize if I try and misconstrue some things, but is what Lil Sim's talking about, i.e., she's at war in her mind. Like, how on earth, despite everything that black people have been through in history, that there could still be people who act like this? And what about, guys, listen, you probably already know that I'm a Christian myself, and they persecuted Jesus for all the good that he did. I think you could easily, like, I know the comparison is a pretty, easy one to make, but it's a poignant one nonetheless. That just when you think about it for like more than a second.
Been a friend when your grandma died. I see the illness, see my aunt laying in her bed. I see her soul rising as her body gets closer to death. Trying to be healed. I sabotage what you're trying to build, cause the feelings I keep aside, but it's time to reveal. I hate the thought of just being a burden. I hate that these conversations are surfaced. Sim's an artist or Sim be the person. To you I'm smiling, but really I'm hurting. I dedicate my life and gave my heart over 20-something years, left wondering how I even feel, but was it even worth it? I bottle up and let's spill it in verses. One day I'm wordless, next day I'm a wordsmith. Close to success, but to happiness I'm the furthest. At night I wonder if my tears will dry on their own. Hoping I will fulfill Amy's purpose. Angel said don't let ego be a disturbance. In the demon said motherfucker you earn this. Like they strip you of everything you're deserving. Realize there is a prison and ask me a condition as fuck. Man, it's like they can't sleep till our spirit is crushed. How much fighting must we do? We've been fearless enough. Always seen as broken homes here in poverty. Corrupt government officials, lies and atrocities. How they talking almost threatening the economy. Knocking down communities to re-up on properties. I'm directly affected, it does more than just bother me. Look beyond the surface, don't just see what you wanna see. My speech ain't involuntary, projecting attention straight from my lungs. I'm a black woman and I'm a proud one. We walking blind, faith not knowing the outcome. But as long as we're unified, then we've already won.
Like, where on earth do we even, like... I get entirely where she's coming from. Like, what happens in 20 years if I even get to 43? Like, what would I have to show for my life? What would I have done? That's like... What on... I'm just gonna go through this. What did it... Because also, just in case I forget to say this later, the combination of hip-hop, R&B, I'm sorry, I'm not really particularly like the freshest on that sort of thing, but the combination of like hip-hop and this really biblical crescendo, it works beautifully, in my opinion. It's just, it's a shame. It's something I never thought I would expect to see in a song like this, but that's just what you gotta do. Okay, where was the line? I hate the thought of just being a burden. aka you're just sort of there to be there. This is something that I think literally anyone could relate to. Well, okay, what exactly do you do then if you do not want to be seen as a burden? Well, be seen as someone doing something useful, but what is useful? What is something that people say, you know, is an actual contribution to society? That's, again, I know it's like, what, nearly 10:30 at night, and it's a bit late to start asking these questions, but you know what? It's the questions you've got to ask yourself, because, you know what, like what we said here, what was it, 20 years, that I dedicate my life and gave my heart over 20-something years, left wondering how I even feel, but was it even worth it? I bottle up and then spill in it verses. I like that one anyway. Anyway, so what was it, 20-something years, and I like to imagine that if you don't start asking the questions yourself about what can you do to not be a burden, you've got to be ready to take your life into your own hands and go with it. One day I'm wordless, next day I'm wordsmith. Wordsmith is a... Oh, hang on, what was I? Wordsmith is a British retail store that basically sells books, office equipment, textbooks, that sort of thing. At least that's what I think. I could be thinking of like Waterstones or W.H. Well, okay, you know, W.H. Smith. I think I just answered my own question. Close to success, but to happiness, I'm the furthest. I get that. You know what? You see, okay. Let me make. Okay, I'm gonna try and just let me see if I can phrase this as best as I can. I'm not just saying I relate to this and I know her pain just because I am. But I don't want this to take away from what it could possibly mean to someone who people will hate irregardless. You know, because of the colour of her skin. I don't want this to take away from the fact that I would not know what it's like to be persecuted just for the colour of my skin. I wouldn't know what that's like because I don't particularly think I would pay much attention to it, because it's not really worth my time. But to other people, and I think that you couldn't tell an even further story from that. That's why I'm kind of always a little bit. I struggle sometimes really to sort of formulate my thoughts about stuff like this, because I don't have a clue what it's like, but I can empathize absolutely with being, you know, just cast out for no other reason, nothing logical, nothing whatsoever, but it just comes down to fucking it really goes to show you sometimes, I must have been born on the wrong planet sometimes, but I think, really, colour of skin, are you telling us that we are just this immature and this friggin' pathetic, that skin colour, really? I think that's the first time in a while I've really been honest about stuff like racial discrimination, because why? What do people actually expect is going to, they're going to solve by showing bottle loads of hatred? You know what? A few weeks ago, I saw the movie American History X, and the question is well, basically one of the best ones is anything in regards to how you treat minorities, is that in any way going to make your life better? You know what? I'm nothing like a racist, obviously, and I don't particularly think my life would have improved absolutely, because think about it. Do you think you think racists will ever get employed into work ever again after stuff like that? Oh, who am I talking about? There are racists right now in Parliament, in the highest seats of power in this country, and in the US, and all the way around the world. What I'm trying to say is that even for someone like me, there would have been no chance. Of course, you just don't do it. Also, hang on. Let me just. If there's something else I kind of wanted to point out, because I'll say this again for Little Sims, is that she must have gone at this for days because she has a lot to say, and you know what, I like that about women in general, but I especially like it in musicians when they have a lot that they want to say. All we see is broken homes here in poverty, corrupt government officials, lies and atrocities, how they talking on what's threatening the economy, knocking down communities to reopen properties. You know what, again, I'm going to say this again. There was a library that was in this village, and it got knocked down in September of 2017, and they built flats there instead. You know what? That's probably not quite what Sims had in mind, but they knocked down an old playground, which was such a cornerstone of my childhood, and they built basically a school on top of it. Basically a gym, a sporting set. They built things on top of it, and a stupid car park, among other things. My speech ain't involuntary, projecting intentions straight from my lungs. I'm a black woman and I'm a proud one. We walk in blind faith, not knowing the outcome, but as long as we're unified, then we've already won. You know what? If for nothing else, although I must say there's a lot of things I really want to say about Little Sims, the first thing I'll definitely say right now is that she is a very, very proud woman. I'm proud of her. And I'd find it very hard to believe if there weren't people out there who were not proud of her as well. You know what? Good for her. I feel like this is why I feel like I never would have made it as a musician if I was to write stuff that I felt was seriously important to me, because in comparison, I wouldn't have stood a chance. Not because I wouldn't have been good at it or anything like that, but because this is just it's bigger than ourselves. And I'm a pretty big guy anyway, but this is, I think, even larger than that.
Is an amalgamation of everything. Rules are not to be played by rebels. The story of never ending. Your introversion led you here. Intuition protected you along the way. Feelings allowed you to be well balanced, and perspective gave you foresight. The top of the mountain is nothing without the climb. Only the strong will survive. Only the strong will survive. Truth unveiled with time, as you embark on a journey of what it takes to be a woman.
And I should point out, ladies and gentlemen, is that outro was by a woman called Emma Corrin. It's just kind of like what it says in the credits. But you know what? Like, it only took me aback. Like, that would be that sort of thing would not be out of place in a Nightwish song. In fact, the more I think about it, the music would not be that far out of place from a Nightwish song. Maybe some of the more hip-hop elements perhaps would probably not be. Nightwish are more symphonic sort of stuff. They probably wouldn't like go near like hip-hop if Thomas Hullerpain didn't want to make a very profound statement about it. Which I think he could. Thomas is very, very good and certainly likes a floor. Okay. That, ladies and gentlemen, was Introvert by Little Simz. Well, you know, like I said before, I think Lil Simz is a very, very proud... She should be a very proud woman for what she's managed to give us. I wouldn't call her little, not after this. I'd call her Big Simz. Just because she is, like I said, she is larger than herself. She is... Like I said, the reason why I wouldn't be able to hold a candle if I really tried, because just the performances as well. They turned it into a beautifully choreographed piece as well. You saw people like becoming embraced. They were like letting that war inside them, like they mentioned very early on in the song. It sort of immersed into the surface and they embraced it. They embrace who they are. And they know, as a matter of fact, that they cannot change who they are. Nor should they change who they are, because why should they change who they are? You can't change. There are certain things you can't change, ladies and gentlemen, and I wouldn't want Simz to change. I wouldn't want anything about this song to change if I could, because it's this beautiful... I almost want to call it like a beautiful inner conflict between realizing that you may simply, like, you know, you may not succeed in life no matter how hard you try, versus also a deep resentment that no matter what you do, that the system will always be against you just because of who you are. Because of, you know, what you cannot change on the surface. Which, let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, they said apartheid still exists in the world. Apartheid exists even now. And it's far closer to home than you might think. And you know what? When you begin to process it like that, you sort of begin to realize something a little bit more shocking about the world at large, is that George Floyd, God rest his soul, and I kind of gave a very, you know, silent joy when I heard that cop had been arrested, and I don't particularly think if I remembered him being sentenced as of this date. But let's be real, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think is ever going to stop that from ever happening again? I think you get the idea, is that it's the idea of like this war, this conflict, about the idea that nothing will ever change, and whether I'm here for another 20 years or another 20 minutes, the world will maybe be a little bit sad for about like half a second, and then it will move on. It will move on, going in the full knowledge that, you know, people will die, things will continue to get worse because life goes on. Or rather, some people's lives goes on and some people's gets drastically cut short. I think, honestly, my favourite part about the whole song, really, is kind of like these lines right here. Angel said, "Don't let your ego be a disturbance." Inner demon said, "Motherfucker, you earned this." Like they strip you of everything you're deserving. Realize there is a prison in us. We are conditioned as fuck. man, it's like they can't sleep till our spirit is crushed. How much fighting must we do? We've been fearless enough. All we've seen is broken homes here and poverty. There you are, ladies. It's another it's the conflict of, do we deserve to be on top? If we are on top, then we could be in fear of disrupting the natural order of things to push our agenda. I mean, think about what I said earlier. If I became a musician and I started writing about my inner conflicts and struggles, then I could be disturbing the balance in that for something that is a bit, egotistical and self-loathing and doesn't reflect a much larger issue such as these. Such as, racial prejudice and all the rest of it. And I have to I tip my hat off to Miss Sims, because the more I think about it and the more I sort of realize that if it matters to you, then why shouldn't it be talked about? You know what? I think, honestly, the message in Introvert, and I think you could have put this forward in not just in Sims's term, but from anybody really out there who's hurting or is cut in this sort of very cutthroat battle of want versus need. Perhaps the thing to say is that, well, quite frankly, you should be able to all look in the mirror and say to yourselves, who are you and what do you want? And you know what? Little Sims had something to say, and she said it. And I think when in the long run, I think that's exactly why I'm so proud of her, because she did it. And maybe, just maybe, I should stop being so afraid and scared of myself, stop being so introverted, and let my thoughts step into the light. Let the world know that obviously I'm not hurting, but there are things I need to get off my chest, so that finally, after seeing this not so little Sims tackle what is still a universal issue, regardless, I think it's time that we all stepped away. We all stepped out of our shells. We stopped even remotely believing that, these things are not worth talking about, and that we should all finally crawl out of the garden and back into the world of man. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that is where I should be. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this reaction video. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys thought of Introvert by Little Sims. And I will hope to see you guys again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye for now.